Welcome back, guys, to this time. Today, we're going to journey way back into ancient Greece, a world of marble temples, busy marketplaces, sea voyages, poets, and stories that have lasted for thousands of years. The people of ancient Greece told myths to explain the world around them. Why the seasons change, why storms shake the sky, why heroes rise and fall, and why pride can sometimes lead to disaster. These stories were filled with powerful gods, clever heroes, dangerous monsters, and important lessons about life. To help us explore this fascinating world, we're going to meet Phoebe, a little Greek girl who lives in a time when these myths are part of everyday life. Through Phoebe's eyes, we'll discover how Greek mythology helped people to understand nature, religion, courage, fate, and even the human heart. So let's step into ancient Greece and hear these stories from Phoebe herself. Now, I'm going to be jumping in here and there, and for those of you who don't know me, my name is Miss Bree, educator, farmer, illustrator, singer, and very proud grammar nerd. Thank you. So welcome to the farm school, and let's get started with Phoebe. Hello, my name is Phoebe, and I live in the ancient city of Thebes, in the land of Greece. Our city stands among green hills and fertile fields in a region called Boeotia. Traders pass through our gates. Farmers bring crops from the countryside, and storytellers share tales of gods and heroes. In Thebes, stories are everywhere. Some tell of mighty Zeus ruling the sky. Others speak of brave heroes who faced monsters and great challenges. Many of the most famous myths in Greece are connected to my city. To us, though, these stories are not just entertainment. They help us understand the world, the gods, and our place in it. So, for example, a day in my city, right, just an average day, would be this. So when morning begins in Thebes, the city slowly fills with sound as everybody arrives. The farmers arrive with baskets of grain and fruit. Merchants open their stalls in the marketplace. Priests prepare offerings at the temples. Travelers pass through our city, bringing news and stories from other parts of Greece, like Carthage and Athens. But Thebes has stories of its own. Some of the most famous myths in all of Greece began right here. A myth is a story, yes, but it's more than that. A myth explains things that matter deeply, like how the world began, why storms rage, why people suffer, and why courage and wisdom are so important. Many myths are sacred to us because they are tied to the gods and to worship. Even when a myth seems strange or magical, it often holds a truth about life. In my city, these stories are told again and again and again, sometimes by traveling poets, sometimes by elders who remember the old tales. My mom and dad even tell me these stories all the time. Now, not all stories are exactly alike. Some are myths, which tell of gods and sacred beginnings. Some are legends with brave heroes and mighty deeds that may connect to real places or long ago events. And some are more folk tales, kind of, filled with clever tricks and dangerous journeys or happy reunions. But in Greece, these kinds of stories often mix together, making them all the richer. The stories of my people matter because they help answer great questions, like why does the sky thunder? Why does winter come? Why do cruel people fall? And why do wise people sometimes rise? Myths can explain nature, but they can also guide behavior. They teach us to honor the gods, to be careful with pride, and to remember that choices have consequences. High above the world rises Mount Olympus, home of the most powerful gods. Basically, the Olympians are like a great divine family, right? They're like just a big family up there. Each has a special power, a special role, and a special personality. Some are wise, some are fierce, some are kind, and some are dangerously quick to anger. And it's not always a super functional family. Their stories shape the world of mortals below, like me. Even though the gods live high on Mount Olympus, people in Thebes honor them every day with temples, prayers, and festivals. First up, we're going to talk about Zeus, right? Zeus is the king of the gods, ruler of the sky, and wielder of thunderbolts. His power is enormous, and many myths tell how he rose to rule after a great struggle against the Titans. When storms roll across the mountains, many imagine Zeus at work above us, mighty and watchful. I still get scared by the thunder. Yet Zeus is not simple. Like many gods, he can be wise one moment and reckless the next. Each god rules over part of life. Hera is queenly and proud. Athena is wise, sharp-minded, and brave. Poseidon governs the sea, and sailors fear his temper. Apollo is linked to music, healing, and prophecy. Demeter watches over crops and harvests. The gods do not only rule nature, their stories also reflect human feelings like love, jealousy, anger, sorrow, and hope. Now, one thing that I find most interesting is that the gods can seem so much like us. They quarrel, right? They get in fights. They love, they become jealous, they punish, protect, and sometimes they forgive. This makes them easier for people to understand, but also more frightening because their emotions are joined with divine power, and what if I make them mad? Long ago, apparently, according to my mom, before the world had shape, there was chaos. From this beginning came Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky. From them came powerful beings called the Titans, and later came the Olympian gods. This is how many Greeks, like me, imagine creation. Not as one sudden event, but as a great unfolding of divine generations. Now, if you try and keep track of all the gods and their families, you will soon see how complicated it can be because there are so many different gods and so many different families. So that's why poets like Hesiod were so important. In his great work, the Theogony, he explained how the gods were related and how power passed from one generation to the next. These stories are full of struggle, succession, and change. Many of our myths have been preserved by poets, like Homer, who told the stories of war and wandering. Hesiod wrote of the gods' beginning. Other poets and playwrights added new details, new lessons, and new interpretations. Because of them, these stories have traveled across centuries. The Iliad, for example, the Homer that we talked about in the last page here, wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad tells of war, honor, anger, and loss during the Trojan War. The Odyssey tells of long journeys, clever escapes, monsters, and the longing to return home. These poems are some of the greatest stories in our world, and they help people imagine both the gods and the heroes. Now, in Thebes, where I live, we worship the gods in temples and festivals. Priests offer sacrifices, and people pray for protection, good harvests, and safe journeys. Our myths explain why the gods deserve respect and why it can be dangerous to anger them. Of course, not all famous figures in our stories are gods, right? Many are heroes. Heroes are often brave and remarkable, but they are rarely perfect. They make mistakes, suffer deeply, and face impossible trials. That is one reason their stories stay with us. The story of Theseus and the Minotaur is one many children know well. I know my mom, has told it to me many, many times, along with all of my siblings. So, Theseus enters a dark labyrinth to face a terrible monster that is half man and half bull. He survives not only because he is brave, but because he is clever and he has a princess to help him. This story reminds us that courage and wisdom work best together. One of the greatest heroes in Greece, Heracles, has a really strong connection to my city. Long ago, he lived right here in Thebes and married Megara, the daughter of our king. His life was filled with triumph and tragedy, and his story reminds us how even the strongest heroes can face terrible hardships. Where Heracles is strong, Odysseus is clever. He survives monsters, storms, and enchantments, not by force alone, but by wit and patience. His journey home takes many, many years, and every challenge tests his courage and mind. One of the most famous stories of all takes place in my own city. It is the tragic story of Oedipus, a king of Thebes whose life becomes tangled in fate and prophecy. This myth reminds people that some forces, especially fate, can be impossible to escape. The story of Oedipus is often told in our theaters and is one of the most powerful legends in Greece. Many myths also warn us not to become too proud. For example, Icarus flew too close to the sun, Niobe boasted too much, Marsyas dared to challenge a god. Again and again, these stories remind us that mortals must remember their limits. One of the most beautiful and sorrowful myths is the story of Demeter and Persephone. When Persephone is taken to the underworld, her mother Demeter grieves so deeply that the earth stops producing grain. But when Persephone returns, life begins again. Flowers bloom and the fields grow green. This story helps explain why the world moves through seasons of loss and renewal. The poet Hesiod also told of different ages of humankind. The Golden Age was peaceful and joyful. Later ages became more troubled, more violent, and more sorrowful. By the Iron Age, people lived with struggle, labor, and moral decline. These myths reflect a longing for a better time long lost. Now, the Golden Age is imagined as a time when people lived in peace and happiness, without heavy labor or great suffering. It's like the dream of a lost paradise, a reminder of the human longing for a world made right. After the Golden Age came ages of growing trouble. People became less respectful, more violent, and more burdened by suffering. The Iron Age, the age Hesiod believed he lived in, was a time of toil and sorrow. It is a powerful way of thinking about the human condition. Now, between the darker ages stands the Age of Heroes, a time of mighty figures and unforgettable deeds. These heroes are larger than life, yet still deeply human. Their stories connect the world of myth with the memory of ancient wars and kingdoms. Many Greek myths contain familiar story patterns. There are journeys into darkness, long-lost loved ones, clever escapes, and dramatic recognitions. These folktale elements make myths easier to remember and help them speak to ordinary human hopes and fears. In many stories, the gods can change shape. A god may become an animal or appear in another form altogether. These transformations remind us that the divine is powerful, mysterious, and impossible to control. Many temples and artworks in cities like Thebes, Athens, and Delphi show scenes from myths, helping people remember these stories. Our myths are not only spoken, they are painted on pottery, carved into temples, and shaped into statues. Even when voices are gone, like mine, these objects remain and continue telling the stories. That is one reason mythology has endured for so long. Long after my own time, artists and writers will still return to these stories. They will paint Athena, write of Odysseus, sculpt Apollo, and retell tragedies of ancient heroes. These myths continue because they carry timeless themes. The stories of my people endure because they are about the deepest parts of being human. They are about longing, bravery, grief, foolishness, wisdom, and hope. Though the temples may age and the voices of old poets may fade, the stories continue to live wherever people ask big questions about life. Living in Thebes, I grew up hearing these stories again and again and again. Stories of gods who shape the world and heroes who struggle against monsters, fate, and their own mistakes. They help us understand courage, humility, and the power of the gods. When I listen to these myths, I hear more than old tales. I hear my people trying to understand the world, why it is beautiful, why it is painful, and how humans should live within it. That is why Greek mythology still matters. Thank you for visiting my city of Thebes, where the stories of gods and heroes live on in temples, songs, and memories. The myths of Greece began long, long ago, but their lessons still travel far beyond my time and my city. Perhaps that is the true magic of stories. They can cross centuries and still speak to us. All right, guys, thank you for traveling through the world of Greek mythology with Phoebe. The myths of ancient Greece are more than old stories. They are windows into how people long ago made sense of the world, honored their gods, taught important values, and explored questions about bravery, justice, love, loss, and fate. Even today, Greek mythology continues to shape books, movies, art, language, and storytelling all around the world. That lasting influence reminds us that while these stories are ancient, the feelings and questions inside them are still deeply human. By listening to Phoebe's World, we can better understand both the past and the timeless power of stories. So I hope you'd enjoyed this video, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Remember, we release videos every single day, and if you have any questions or anything, you can always go to our website and check us out. Thanks. Bye.